The Twitter files released. Elon Musk promised this would happen for a long time, and finally it has happened. We're going to go through the thread in detail, all of it exposing, of course, Hunter Biden seen here. Much of these photographs were censored, banned. We couldn't talk about it. All of it was hacked, fake, illegal misinformation until it turns out it was all true. And so now it's all been revealed to America. Now we're going to go through it, I said, in detail. But before we do, let's take a look at the key players, just so we have familiarity with who we're talking about as the names pop up. Of course, we all know Jack Dorsey, former CEO, big executive at Twitter. Don't really know whether he had much say or not. We're going to see in the Twitter thread that not really. We've got Vijaya Gadde, heard much about her. She was the head of legal at Twitter. She was on the Joe Rogan show. She was the person who sort of came up with the legal justifications to censor and trample all over the First Amendment. She was very important in this ordeal. We also have this guy, which we'll do a full segment on in another segment, about Yoel Roth. He was trust and safety, and he is responsible for making sure nobody, gets actually injured as a result of the misinformation, disinformation, and so on. We remember this person. His name is James Baker, ex-FBI general counsel for the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and he is now working at Twitter. Okay, so his emails are going to pop up. He was the general counsel for an intelligence agency before he went over to work for Twitter, which sort of begs the question, is the whole thing just a giant psyop or what? But he is over there, of course, and we're going to see emails from him. And this gentleman named Ro Khanna, that's not actually an R, that is a K, who is a Democrat from California, also made an appearance in this entire thread. So actually the only real sane person who is advocating for First Amendment protections is Ro Khanna. And so those are the players. Now, after we go through the thread, we're going to get reaction or actually see from the other people who were nuked. Kayleigh McEnany was Trump's press secretary at the time. James Woods was somebody who posted a tweet that got nuked from the Twitter platform. And finally, we'll check in with the Mac store. So a lot to get to in this segment. Let's jump right into the Twitter thread and see what Matt had unveiled for us. And this was all over the internet on all over the weekend. And of course, there's, been Twitter spaces. And this is evidently just the first drop of many, right? There's going to be much more of this to come. And Elon, even in a Twitter space over the weekend, said that he is working on releasing the entirety of the files, right? So at some point, Matt Taibbi is going to go through them, synthesize them, make them digestible for public consumption. But then after that, right, sounds like we're going to get the raw files, right? Like literally an image hard drive uploaded to like WikiLeaks style, which would just be, salivating. That would just be so great. And we would have a lot of fun with that. But until that day happens, we're going to go through the thread and we'll jump off here and explore where this takes us. Matt Taibbi releases the Twitter files. He posts a thread. He says, the Twitter files, dun dun. What you're about to read is the first installment in a series based upon thousands of internal documents obtained by sources at Twitter. Elon. The Twitter files tell an incredible story from inside one of the world's largest and most influential social media platforms. It is a Frankensteinian tale of a human-built mechanism grown out of the control of its designer. Twitter, in its conception, was a brilliant tool for enabling instant mass communication, making a true real-time global conversation possible for the first time. Maybe like a town square, some might say. In an early conception, Twitter more than lived up to its mission statement. It gave people the power to create and share ideas and information instantly without barriers. That's in quotes, right? That's Twitter's mission. On this channel, we talk about safety, clarity, and hope at my law firm, right? Or here, accountability, transparency, and justice. Those are the values. That's the mission. What are we trying to achieve? Those things. They want information communicated without barriers. Love it. Now, as time progressed, however, the company was slowly forced to add those barriers. Some of the first tools for controlling speech were designed to combat the likes of spam and financial fraudsters. But slowly, over time, Twitter staff and executives began to find more and more use for these tools. Outsiders began petitioning the company to manipulate speech as well. First, a little, then a little more often, and then constantly. Floodgates were open. Pandora's box had been revealed. By 2020, requests from connected actors to delete tweets were routine. One executive would write to another, quote, "More to review from the Biden team." The reply would come back, "Handled." Here is an excerpt from Matt Taibbi. This email was sent on Saturday, October 24th, 2020. Kind of an important date, isn't it? Yeah, because the election is just a couple weeks away in November. Yeah. Trump versus Biden. We've got more to review from the Biden team. We don't know exactly who this came from. Blanked out at twitter.com wrote, more to review from the Biden team. Jared, Twitter account, Let, JSJX, Ozwin, Guy Swigs, they're all on the list. Thanks all, somebody said. Can you remove these? And down at the bottom, you see on Saturday at a mere 8:28 p.m. So just less than 3 hours later, boom, deleted. Handled these, they said. Now that's a campaign communicating to a private company about posts that they don't like. And there's not even much conversation taking place about any of this. Handled these. Removed them, right? Presumably that's what that means. Deleted. Sort of like out of a movie, right? Get the phone call. Is it done? It's done. Click. Phone gets evaporated, right? That's what's happening now. The Biden administration doing that. Celebrities and unknown alike could be removed or reviewed at the behest of a political party. This is what a conversation looked like on October 25th. 9:58 in the morning, email comes in. I grabbed the first one under SI. So actually let's start at the bottom. At October 24th, 2020, 6:54 p.m., an additional report came in from the DNC. And look at these names. Oh my goodness. We've got Stephen Lujan had a status, and another one from Real James Woods. James Woods, the actor? Yeah, the actor. That's that guy. He says, or somebody sends over a response. They say, I grabbed the first one under SI, but I'm going to defer to safety on the high profile second one. Let me translate that for you. It means this first tweet is from some loser nobody who nobody cares about. So we'll just censor him. I grabbed the first one under SI, whatever. But the other one, somebody's going to care about if I have to nuke that one. So why don't we escalate that one? Why doesn't that go up to the higher status? Now, what tweet was that, you might ask? It is something that was able to be looked up, of course, over on the archives. This is what we found here. Now, it's blurred out, and it is an image of Hunter Biden, who is smoking crack with James Woods. James Wood posted this tweet, and he says, I'm on Team Joe. Right now, that's Hunter Biden smoking crack in his bed. That's the tweet that James Wood posted. And he got deleted from that. Now, we're going to come back to James Woods, and he's going to explain a bit more about his reaction to this. But that's the actual tweet, right? So that's what he got nuked for. So that's the high profile account that they're very concerned about. All right, what happens next? Now, both parties, according to Matt, had access to these tools. For instance, in 2020, requests from both the Trump White House, and the Biden campaign were received and honored. This system wasn't balanced. It was based on contacts. Now, because Twitter was and is overwhelmingly staffed by people of one political orientation, there are more ways to complain open to the left other than to the right, right? So big chunks of people are donating to the Democrats, which presumably means they're going to be supportive of the Democrats. The resulting slant in content moderation is visible in documents you're about to read. However, it's also the assessment of multiple current and former high-level executives. The Twitter files, he starts, part 1, and the how and the why Twitter blocked the laptop story. It starts. On October 14, 2020, the New York Post published Biden's secret emails, an expose based on the contents of the abandoned laptop. Now, if you were here on this channel back in, of course, October 2020, we were going hard on this story. I mean, we spent most of the rest of October talking about this. We had Tony Bobulinski. We had all of the files, all of the emails that were leaked. This was a national story, and we covered it in depth, right? We've spent a lot of time on Hunter. Now, it says that Matt continues, he says, Twitter, after that story broke, Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story. They removed links. They posted warnings that links may be unsafe. They even blocked the transmission via direct message. You couldn't even send the story to another person. A tool hitherto reserved for the most extreme cases, aka CP. Now, it's funny, YouTube's saying that we're getting some pretty blurry, pretty blurry video on YouTube. Are we coming in okay on locals and on Rumble? Hopefully. Yeah, Dana says it looks good over there. So that's interesting. Yeah, that's good over on locals. It looks good on my end. That's interesting. All right. Blurry on YouTube. Well, hopefully we don't get a strike for any of this stuff. Twitter is a potato cam, says Paul. Locals looks good, though. That's weird. It's blurry on Rumble. All right, let me see if I can swap a setting or something real quick to adjust. Nope, that I can't do it in the middle of a stream. All right, well, we'll just keep going and we'll see if it clears up. Now, Matt continues. He says, Twitter took extraordinary steps to suppress the story, removing links and posting warnings that it may be unsafe. They even blocked its transmission. White House spokesman Kayleigh McEnany was locked out of her account for tweeting about the story, prompting a furious letter from the Trump campaign staffer, somebody named Mike Hahn, who seethed, quote, "At least pretend to care for the next 20 days. His email was sent on October 14, 2020 at 7:19 p.m. Subject, urgent, Kayleigh McEnany. 2, C. Strom at Twitter, Lauren DeVol at Twitter, Twitter and government politics, gov@twitter.com. McEnany, writes the person, from Mike Hahn at donaldtrump.com, says this to Twitter. Kayleigh has been locked out of her account for simply talking about the New York Post story. All she did was cite the story in firsthand reporting that has been reported by other outlets and not disputed by the Biden campaign. I don't need an answer. I need an answer immediately on when and how she will be unlocked. I don't appreciate how nobody on this team called me regarding the news that you'll be censoring news articles. Like I said, at least pretend to care for the next 20 days. Just pretend. Because the election is coming up in November. So they took out James Wood for talking about the story, for posting an image, a fake meme. They banned or severely censored the New York Post story, and they just nuked Trump's press secretary off of her account in October. Matt says this led public policy executive Carolyn Strom to send out a polite WTF email. Several employees noted that there were tension between comms and policy teams who had little and less control over moderation and the safety and trust teams. Here's the email from Carolyn. It says, "Hi team, are you able to take a closer look here? Thank you." Strom's note returned the answer that the laptop story had been removed for a violation of the company's, quote, hacked material policy. This is what it looked like. Elaine Ong Sato on the global escalations team, she's an ops analyst, said, hi, Carolyn. Hey, thanks for reaching out to us. Per checking, the user was bounced by site integrity for violating our hacked materials policy. Adding them here for further insights and guidance. Okay, so that's Kayleigh McEnany, Trump's press secretary, hacked materials policy. All right. Although several sources recalled hearing about, quote, a general warning from federal law enforcement about possible foreign hacks, there's no evidence that I've seen of any government involvement in the laptop story, right? This is Matt Taibbi. Now, this is a big criticism of this post. A lot of people on the left, a lot of people who are saying this is a big nothing burger are all responding on this point. They're saying that, so what, right? This is a private Biden campaign who's communicating directly to Twitter. They should be allowed to do whatever they want. We'll get to this. Okay, there's all sorts of government involvement in the next segment. Now, Matt says the decision was made at the highest levels of the company, but without the knowledge of CEO Jack Dorsey. No idea. Without the former head of legal, policy, and trust, Vijaya played a key role. We're familiar with her from the Joe Rogan show. They just freelanced it, is how one former employer characterized the decision. Hacking was the excuse, but within a few hours, pretty much everyone realized that that wasn't going to hold. But no one had the guts to reverse it. You can see the confusion in the following exchange, which ends up including God and former trust and safety chief Yoel Roth, who we'll talk about soon. Comms official Trenton Kennedy writes, I'm struggling to understand the policy basis for marking this unsafe. He writes, New York Post Hunter Biden laptop article, privileged and confidential, says our teams continue to investigate the origins of the material included in the reporting. Trenton says, I'm struggling to understand the basis for marking this unsafe. I think the best explainability argument for this externally, meaning for everybody else, the public relations of this, would be that we're waiting to understand if this story is the result of hacked materials. We're waiting to see, right? Just sort of a gray area. We'll face hard questions on this if we don't have some kind of solid reasoning for marking this unsafe. Copied Yoel, copied Summers, copied Plunkett, copied Roseborough. Katie responds and says, are we going to mark similar stories unsafe? Like, this is a new policy that we're doing? Because, it's kind of dicey on this. It sounds like this is a whole new policy. But they didn't really report it this way. So, right, Katie is saying, this sounds like a change. Should we make this change for other stories that pop up? So they're having this back and forth. By this point, everyone knew the situation was effed, writes Taibbi. Said one former employee, but the response was essentially to err on the side of continuing to err, right? They've already made a giant mistake. They can't reverse course. Otherwise, they've got to acknowledge that they're censors and hacks of the election. Now, Eli Roth, or Yoel Roth, not Eli, says the policy basis is hacked materials. Okay, this is this guy we're going to hear a lot more from later. Says, though, as discussed, this is an emerging situation where the facts remain unclear, Roth. Given the severe risks here, he says, and lessons of 2016, what does that mean? Trump won. We don't want that to happen again. Says we're erring on the side of including a warning and preventing this content from being amplified. Vijaya, lawyer, says, well, what's the warning that's going to come up? Yoel says, well, when you click the link, you're going to see a generic URL that references spam, malware, violations. It's not ideal, but it's really the only thing we have. Okay, so their current policy doesn't cover this, so they have to create some workaround for it because they hate the story. So it's a bunch of people who are trying to just sort of rig something up in order to pass their policy basis muster. Ian Plunkett says, whatever we do in the comms, this will become a bias claim for Jack pre-hearing immediately, right? CEO is like, he's knowing Jack's going to get hit over the head with this. Let's make it clear we're proactively but cautiously interpreting this through the lens of our hack materials policy and allowing the link with a warning and a significant reduction of spread down there at the bottom. All of that is conversations between Twitter executives. Now, I'm trying to figure out why it is still so bad quality on YouTube's end. Everything looks good on my end. This is strange. I don't know. We'll carry on. Of course, we'll post all of the clips later. So if you don't want to watch it here, it's weird. It's fine on locals, they say. Matt Taibbi, former VP of Global Comms, asks, you guys, can we say this is accurate? Brandon responds, he says, look, to Ian's point, can we truthfully claim that this is part of the policy? For example, is this part of our approach to addressing potentially hacked materials? I mean, we're limiting visibility of some stories while our investigation is ongoing. Let's think this through. And the former deputy general counsel for the FBI, advises to stay on course. Now, if you recall, let's take a look at who this individual is. We have James Baker. He used to work at the FBI. He sat down in the 2016 election with who? Guess who? Michael Sussman. What did Michael Sussman bring to him? Allegations that Trump was involved in Russian collusion. The whole thing was fake. Michael Sussman was charged with crimes for that, acquitted by a jury of his peers, literal Democrat peers who said, no, you're fine. We don't care about this type of stuff. And he walked away from this. After all of that ended in 2016, James Baker left the FBI, went to work at Twitter so that they could make sure that, this type of stuff on social media never happened again. And Trump could never win again, more or less. And Taibbi continues. He says, okay, this guy responds. Baker says, I support the conclusion that we need more facts. He's a lawyer. He used to work at the FBI. He knows as well as we do that there's a lot of truth to what we were covering at this time. Okay. Tony Bob, there were emails, there were all sorts of corroborating evidence all over the place. But Jim Baker hated the story because it was good for Trump and bad for Biden. He says, I support the conclusion that we need more facts to assess whether the materials were hacked. At this stage, however, it is reasonable for us to assume that they may have been and that caution is warranted. There are some facts that indicate that the materials may have been hacked, while there are others indicating that the computer was either abandoned or the owner consented to allow the repair shop to access it for at least some purposes. We simply need more information. And they just need more time, right? As long as there's enough additional time until, kind of after the election, that's good enough. Taibbi continues. He says, a fundamental problem with tech companies and content moderation is as follows. Many people in charge of speech know or care little about speech. You're kidding. And have been told the basics by outsiders. Here's an example. In one humorous exchange on day one, after Kayleigh got nuked, Democratic Congressman Ro Khanna reaches out to Gotti, the lawyer for Twitter, to gently suggest that she hop on a phone call to talk about the backlash re-speech regarding free speech. Khanna was the only Democratic official I could find who expressed concerns. And so shout out to our friend Ro Khanna, free speech hero. Here's what the message says. October 14th, after Kayleigh got nuked, says, hey, Vijaya, generating huge backlash on the Hill regarding speech. Happy to chat if you're up for it. Don't nuke Trump's press secretary. Gotti doesn't want to even talk to him. He doesn't care. She's like, what are you, a congressman? I don't care. What are you emailing me for? You don't work here. Says, hi, Congressman Khanna. Thank you for reaching out. We appreciate the heads up that Congress is upset. Nobody cares. We put out a clarifying thread of tweets earlier, so go read my tweets about it this evening to explain our policy around the posting of private information and linking directly to hacked materials. If you didn't get it, that's your own fault. Don't bother me. The press secretary's account was not permanently suspended. We just requested that she delete the tweet containing the material that's in violation of our rules, and her account is restricted until she complies. I'm happy to jump on the phone if helpful. I don't really want to talk to you, but if you really want me to, I'll do it. Otherwise, go read my tweet thread. I'm done with you. My team in DC, Jessica and Lauren, are copied here, and they're also available to discuss. Okay, so she just nukes a congressman. Just getting rid of the whole thing. I don't even want to talk to you. Leave me alone. Khanna says, okay, well, I wanted to talk to you on the phone about this, but you don't even want to talk to me. If a congressman calls you, he kind of probably wants to have an off-the-record conversation, a bunch of stuff that's not in writing. And she didn't catch that hint. She's like, well, I'll just respond an email to you. Okay. So then Khanna responds. Now he tries to reroute the conversation to the First Amendment. She has a lot of disdain for it, obviously. Khanna writes back to Vijaya. Says, hope you're well, Vijaya. Well, thanks for the update in your tweet thread, but this seems a violation of First Amendment principles. If there is a hack of classified information or other information that could expose, for example, a serious war crime, and the New York Times was to publish that, I think the New York Times should have that right. Guess what they do? A journalist should not be held accountable for the illegal actions of the source unless they actively aided the hack. Didn't happen here. So, to restrict the distribution of that material, especially regarding a presidential candidate, seems not in the keeping of principles of New York Times versus Sullivan. I say this as a total Biden partisan and convinced that he didn't even do anything wrong. But the story now has become more about censorship than the relatively innocuous emails, and it's become a bigger deal than it would have been. I believe Twitter itself, says Rowe, should curtail what it recommends or puts in trending news, and your policy against QAnon is all good. He says, I know it's a hard balance, but in the heat of a presidential campaign, restricting dissemination of newspaper articles, even if it is the New York Post, is far right. He says, seems like it will invite more backlash than it will do good. Totally right. Please keep this communication between just us and Jack. No need to CC the team or forward to them. I just wanted to offer my 2 cents. Right? And she's like, hey, I could have told you all this on the phone, but I'll put it in writing. I think what you're doing is against the law. It's against the Constitution, and how dare you? But she didn't want to talk to him about it, and so now it's all coming out publicly. Now, of course, this is right? This is the right approach. They should have allowed it to fly. They shouldn't have censored it. What they did was really disgusting and dishonest, and they should be ashamed of themselves. But it worked. They got exactly what they wanted. They won the election. So do they care? Are they feeling bad about it? I doubt it. Now, let's carry on. Taibbi says, within a day, head of public policy Lauren Culbertson receives a ghastly letter and a report from somebody named Carl Szabo, the research firm called Net Choice. This had already polled 12 members of Congress, and they're angry. 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats from the House Judiciary Committee are all upset about this. Szabo sends this letter October 15th after McEnany got nuked. Says, subject of the Hill's convos about Biden and, quote, censorship. Dear Lauren, yesterday, Net Choice, the company owner, somebody named Chris, met informally with 9 Republicans and 3 Democrat House staffers to gather intel about Facebook and Twitter and the New York Post story. The staffers hail from the House Judiciary Committee to Rep. Judy Chu's office. Right. So he's saying, in other words, the Republicans are pissed. Net Choice lets Twitter know a bloodbath awaits in the upcoming Hill hearings. Members saying we're at a tipping point on this. Tech has grown so big that they can't even regulate themselves. So government may need to intervene. He says, let me summarize this for you over there, Vijaya. High level takeaway. Every Republican said, quote, this is a tipping point. It's just too much. And both Democrats and Republicans were angry. Szabo reports to Twitter that some Hill figures are characterizing the laptop as Tech's Access Hollywood moment, saying, when asked just how bad the situation is, one staffer said, quote, it's Tech's Access Hollywood moment, and it has no Hillary to hide behind. Others were even more blunt. Tech is screwed, and rightfully so. But it continues. Szabo's letter contains chilling passages relaying Democrats' attitudes. They want more moderation. And as for the Bill of Rights, they say, well, who cares about it? It's not absolute anyways. The Democrats, according to Szabo, meanwhile complain that companies are inept. They let conservatives muddy the water, and they make the Biden campaign look corrupt, even though Biden's innocent. They link this to Hillary Clinton's email scandals. She did nothing wrong, but the press wouldn't let the story go. It became a scandal far out of proportion. In their mind, social media is doing the same thing. It doesn't moderate enough harmful content, so when it does, like it did yesterday, it becomes a story. These people are nuts. If the companies moderated more, conservatives wouldn't even think to use social media for disinfo, misinfo, or otherwise. The Democrats were in agreement. Social media needs to moderate more because they're corrupting democracy and they're making all truth relative. When pushed on how the government might insist on that, consistent with the First Amendment, they demurred. They said the First Amendment isn't absolute. Sick people. Very sick. Now, the subplot continues. An amazing subplot of this is how much of this was done without the knowledge of Jack Dorsey, the CEO, and how long it took for the situation to get uneffed, as one ex-employee put it. There are multiple instances in the files of Dorsey intervening to question the suspension for accounts all across the political spectrum. But the problem with the hacked materials ruling, several sources said, was that this normally required an official law enforcement finding of a hack. Of course, that's not what happened here. Hunter Biden's laptop was left and it was abandoned. But such a finding never appears throughout one executive describes as a whirlwind, a 24-hour company-wide mess because they had to censor Kayleigh. Somebody sends this. They say, hi, Owls. As you are probably aware, Twitter actioned tweets yesterday relating to 2 New York Post articles. Is this from Dorsey? I think it's from Dorsey. Multiple instances of Dorsey intervening. He says, hi, Owls. As you're probably aware, Twitter actioned tweets yesterday from two New York Post articles that were tweeted out that allegedly included pictures of emails from a laptop belonging to Hunter, Joe Biden's son, presidential candidate. Our teams made the determinations that the materials fall under our hacked materials policy. And in addition to our sharing of personal information, so the links were actioned. As you may know, the existing policy framework was launched in 2018 to mitigate real harm based on hack and leak scenarios coming out of the 2016 election, which again was also largely, fraudulent, really. I mean, I guess if you wanted to put WikiLeaks, like sort of the WikiLeaks hack into that category, but that was something that had been going on, I think, well before the 2016 election. The big October surprise in 2016 was James Comey's conclusion that he was not going to do anything about it, right? That was what they were so upset about. But the ClintonEmail.com server was something that was percolating for, a long time even before that. And she was escaping liability, even after, since Benghazi and all of that, right? She's been in this mess for a long time. So the 2018 and all of these additional frameworks, in my opinion, were coming out to stop conservatives, right? To stop Republicans, to mitigate the harm of disinfo and of advocacy and of effective conversation taking place that might harm the Democrats. After Trump won, they all went, oh my gosh, we got to create entire new frameworks to stop this from happening again. Dorsey continues, he says, several high-profile accounts, including press outlets, were impacted by this decision and were actioned. Unfortunately, the language was provided in the product and may have created confusion, indicating the links were spam or unsafe, and consequently, Twitter explained the reasoning here in a thread. Now, this morning, the New York Post tweeted additional links to stories that contain pictures and screenshots of emails that were also actioned. The teams determined that a Trump campaign tweet that was previously actioned for containing PPI would not be a reaction because it was retweeted without the PPI blurred. I know there are questions you probably have, and also probably getting a lot of incoming from stakeholders, governments, academics, civil society, angry conservatives, MAGA insurrectionists. The last 24 hours certainly have been a whirlwind with lots of curves and unknowns, and we fully expect the issues surrounding this matter to continue to swirl in the coming days. So thank you to everyone for their patience, right? Total disaster there. Now, Taibbi says, in conclusion, that it's been a whirlwind 96 hours for me too. There's much more to come, including answers to questions about issues like shadow banning and boosting and follower counts and the fate of individual accounts and more. These issues are not limited to the political right. Gets everybody. Good night, everyone, he says. Thanks to all those who picked up the phone in the last few days. Now, that is the Twitter thread from Matt Taibbi. And let's check back in on him and see if he's got anything new for us while we're here. He posted yesterday a link to Jonathan Turley talking about James Baker, who of course was with the FBI. And of course, he's got some other stuff that he's posting. So of course, this is Matt Taibbi. You can go follow him. He's going to have some additional drops, evidently, that are coming out this week. And I wanted to see if Elon maybe had an update for us on that before we carry on, because he said that they may be coming out today or in the next few days is what he said. And Elon's in the house. So many interesting posts talking about the space arc. And I don't think we have any additional comments on when the next drop will be. But if you see anything, let me know. Okay. And in the meantime, we'll carry on. All right. So that's what's going on there out of the Twitter thread. Now we know the players, all of these people are involved. We're going to see some reaction from James Woods and Kayleigh McEnany. Actually, that's when she got nuked. And we're going to listen to the clip, several clips from the Mac store owner, the guy who was actually responsible for transmitting the materials over to Rudy Giuliani and their team. But first, let's talk about 4 Patriots. I've got a story. A tree branch hit a power line back in Ohio, 2003. It shut down 21 power plants. Around 100 people died. We have a power grid in America, my friends, that was designed in the 1800s. Even the White House sees it. They're saying that 2/3 of the grid are at least 25 years old. And they recently announced billions of dollars to update it. How long is it going to take to actually do that? Forever. It's the government. That's why having your own solar power is more important now than ever. And with the Patriot power generator, you get a solar generator that doesn't install into your house. It's portable. You can take it with you, even use it inside. It's powerful enough for your phone, your medical devices, and even your fridge. And right now, you can go to 4patriots.com and use promo code Robert to get 10% off your first purchase on anything in the store, including this Patriot Power Generator. Look at this thing. It's a beauty. You'll also get their famous guarantee for an entire year after your order, free shipping on anything over $97. A portion of every sale is donated to charities who support our veterans and their families. And so you can go to 4patriots.com and use code Robert to get 10% off your order. That's 4patriots.com. Use code Robert. 3-month food survival, 4-week survival, 1-year survival, Patriot Power Generator, all at 4patriots.com. All right. And so now let's head on over and see what some of this reaction looks like. Now, before we take a look at what James Wood had to say, this was Kayleigh McEnany reacting to her ultimate Twitter ban. We just read through the inside scene, right, what it looked like from inside Twitter headquarters. But this is Kayleigh McEnany reacting to it when it happened in real time.
And it's not a temporary blockage. When I log onto my Twitter account, it says I'm permanently banned. They essentially have me at gunpoint and said, unless you delete a news story reported by the New York Post, I cannot regain access to my account. This is censorship. It is not the American way. This is not how a freedom-loving democracy operates. And we have to hold Twitter accountable. And Facebook, too, is banning the transmission of the story simply because ideologically it hurts the side of the aisle that Silicon Valley prefers. It's sad. It's censorship. This is not America.
Yeah, well,
it is sad. It really is disappointing that that's sort of the situation that we're in, where private individuals are getting their accounts sort of nuked at the behest of the Democratic Party. This is James Woods. He was finding out about this on sort of in real time as the Twitter thread was being released from Matt Taibbi. Tucker Carlson got him on the phone and asked him questions. You know, how does it feel to be somebody who is censored by the DNC, specifically requested that your account get nuked? Here's James Woods.
Accused me of saying that she gave a Nazi salute, and there was a whole bunch of stuff about it on Twitter, and I didn't. I actually asked, why would somebody say that about her? Without going into the details of that lawsuit, it turned out that the DNC was behind that. I won the lawsuit in federal court. It wasn't reported very much. I've been a target of these people for 6 years. They have destroyed my career. They have destroyed my livelihood. They've destroyed my faith in a country that my family has defended in the military since the Revolutionary War. I'm about to be inducted into the Sons of the American Revolution, the Sons of the Revolution. I cannot. You're catching me a bit off guard because I literally just walked in the door, and my wife said, "Have you seen your phone?" I was at the firing range, believe it or not, practicing
for you.
My rights under the Second Amendment, which I guess now that I don't have any First Amendment rights anymore, I'm glad that I still have some Second Amendment rights. I think the whole thing is astonishing. I'm for the first time in my life, honestly speechless.
Well, it is astonishing, and as you just pointed out,
he says he's going to sue.
I will be getting a lawyer.
Here he is.
You one thing, more than anything else you'll ever hear in your life. I will be getting a lawyer. I will be suing the Democratic National Committee no matter what, whether I win or lose. I am going to stand up for the rights that every American, not a so-called celebrity. I'm not a celebrity. I'm hardly recognizable anymore because my career has been destroyed by these very people. And I will sue, and I'm hoping other people will sue. And if it turns out there are a lot of us on this list where the DNC targeted us, and I will quote the immortal words of Joseph Welch when he attacked Joe McCarthy for the enemies list he had, "At long last, sir, have you no shame?"
Yes.
President Biden, all of your Stasi little operatives in the DNC who have targeted American citizens, have you, Mr. President, have all of you at last no shame?
They don't, James. They have no shame at all. They would do it again. They would do it harder if they could. And they may try. They're fighting very hard to keep this power. They do not want Elon to have any control at all. And so shout out to James Woods for standing up, man. He's been fighting this for a long time. And if you listen to the full clip on the Tucker show, he talks about his whole career being evaporated and destroyed as a result of these people. You speak truth, they call you a conspiracy theorist. You speak truth, they call you a liar, a bigot, a racist, somebody who's trying to undermine America, a MAGA extremist. You know all the list. You've been called them all. And, you know, for somebody like him in his career, in his space, in his industry, it's catastrophic. It takes out the whole business, right? It takes out his whole livelihood. Gone. Even though he was being honest and truthful about it. All right, so horrific thing that's happening in America, but others have been vindicated. This is the Apple Mac store owner, the gentleman who got the Hunter Biden laptop and turned it over to the FBI before ultimately turning it over to Rudy Giuliani and the Trump campaign.
Actually, I was really lucky that I could avoid bankruptcy. If it wasn't actually for the kindness of individuals across the country that contributed to my friend's Give, Send, Go that has kept me out of bankruptcy. So I'm grateful for that.
Almost
and
ruined
now
his
with
life,
the
too.
America Project funding my future lawsuits against Adam Schiff, Politico, CNN, Hunter Biden, and the campaign to elect Joe Biden.
Oh, yes, get them all.
I'm not going to wait for the Department of Justice to act. I'm going to try to do what I can on my front. I'm also going to try to do what I can to work with Congress to make sure they have all the resources, materials. I just came out with a book that basically chronicles the entire ordeal, which I first want to just say I can't begin to thank Miranda Devine enough. I wouldn't have been able to publish my book if it wasn't for the opportunity she provided me. So I'm grateful for her. But I've mapped everything out. There's a timeline. I have time and date stamps. I have fresh, clean copies of Drive. I'm ready to go to war with this, and I'm not going to stop until it's over.
But, you know, this...
Good for him, right? Now, he had his life screwed. They said he was some sort of... My understanding is the guy's not even a conservative, right? He's sort of not even a political person. And they called him, a Russian hack, disinformation, this, that, or the other. They wrecked this guy's life. Listen.
Good morning, John Paul. It's great to see you again. Since we last spoke, all four of us here together, there's been a lot that's happened, including as recently as last night. I'm just curious, after you've seen everything unfold and you saw some of Elon in the last couple of days, what are your thoughts?
Finally vindicated. Okay, there have been a ton of people, and we talked about this on the morning walk and talk yesterday. Miranda Devine, Garrett Ziegler, there are Julie Kelly, tons of people who have done an amazing job on this story. And we did a full interview with Garrett Ziegler. There's the laptop report. You can see all of it. And for a long time, even the Republicans didn't want to talk about it, right? And they may still not want to talk about it, but where was Mitch McConnell? Where was Kevin McCarthy? Where were these people pounding the table about any of this stuff? Where was, any of the demands for inquiries or any of these things from the mainstream part of the Republicans, right? All of this stuff was delegated to sort of the far right, alt-right, all the people who were already nuked off Twitter and had to go find new homes in Parler and Gab and True Social and all of the other, Getter and all of these other locations and Rumble and Locals, right? And now Elon, $44 billion purchase. The only way to get access to this stuff, the only way to run it up the flagpole so enough people can see it is to go through all of this. And so shout out to all those people who've been beating this story for years. Now this guy, finally, it's all coming out. Elon shines one of the biggest spotlights on the world to all of his 119, maybe 120 million followers. How does it feel, sir?
Well, I'm grateful. I don't know how many people know, but I basically was financially ruined by Twitter last year. I tried to save my career because Twitter labeled my actions hacking. I went after them in a defamation suit. I think, though, ultimately the goal from the opposition was to make sure that Twitter would cut my legs off and make sure that I would never have an opportunity to fight my battles in the court of law again. So obviously watching Elon release this material over on Friday night was very exciting for me because what I felt like I knew the whole time was true. And I feel vindicated. I feel I'm grateful for Elon. If he wants free tech support, he's got it. It's refreshing. It's obviously, if he had bought Twitter during the lawsuit, I think things would have worked out a little bit better for me. But you know what? It is what it is. And I'm grateful that the truth is coming out now and that I'm vindicated.
All right, so he is, doing better now that everything is sort of over, and he's very grateful that this has all come out. So are we. And so we'll continue to cover, of course. Matt Taibbi is going to have additional drops. Elon will have additional drops, And we'll talk about it all when it is available and it hits. So that's on the first segment.